Good evening. Welcome back to another Classic Comics live stream. I hope everyone's having a good weekend, and I hope that you will subscribe to the channel while you're here. Let me get that out of the way. And also, want to thank those who did during the live stream and also on a rewatch. All right, let me check my sound here. Am I coming through? Okay, yeah, I think that's coming through okay. All right. So, what do we got going here? We got so the WGA strike ended, of course. So I'll be talking about that right quick. James Gunn has confirmed some of the actors who are going to stay on in the DCU after the reboot. And also, James Gunn apparently is eyeing an actor to play Jor-El, according to rumors. What else have we got here? Um, okay, we're going to talk about the impact that the new deal will have on some of the people in Hollywood, particularly some of the, well, what shall we say, some of the diversity hires that got picked up in Hollywood in recent years and how this is going to impact them. Wizards of the Coast is looks like they're going to get rid of the word witch. They're not going to use that word anymore. And there's some other words they're also considering banning, and a few other things. Some information about Daredevil, Born Again, and and Alan Moore. Alan Moore's got plenty to say about the comic book business as usual, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But let's go ahead and start with the end of the strike. And of course, this was a couple weeks ago, but I didn't stream last weekend. Unfortunately, I got busy with other things. So I didn't talk about it last weekend. All right. So this is from a Hollywood Reporter. Hollywood's let's see what is okay. So Writers Guild strike to end Wednesday. Leadership votes to conclude historic work stoppage. All right. The 148-day writers strike, the second longest in Writers Guild of America history, will conclude at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, thanks to a vote from Guild leadership that officially authorized some 11,500 members. Can I get rid of that? There it is. To return to work. Tasks tasks that for months were prohibited by strike rules, such as pitching, selling scripts, taking meetings, responding to notes, will then be sanctioned while rooms can reconvene. This allows writers to return to work during the ratification process, but does not affect the membership's right to make a final determination on contract approval. The WGA negotiating committee stated after its WGA West Board and East Council voted unanimously to lift the restraining order Tuesday. As the negotiators noted, the end of the strike doesn't mean that the tentative agreement the union reached with studios and streamers Sunday night is a sure thing. Union members still need to vote to ratify the contract. A referendum that union leadership announced on Tuesday will take place between October 2nd and October 9th. Members are also being asked to attend informational meetings on the new deal that will take place in New York, Los Angeles, and on Zoom in the coming days. Their leaders will undoubtedly look to sell the deal to members and argue that the union's grueling work stoppage gave it the necessary leverage to pry these conditions from major industry employers. Studios represented by the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, and the union finally announced the tentative agreement on a new 3-year contract Sunday night, following a full weekend of work on the deal. After about a month where talks were at a standstill, progress accelerated starting September 20th when the two sides got back to the bargaining table at the AMPTP's Sherman Oaks headquarters with major industry leaders such as Bob Iger, Netflix's Ted Sarandos, Warner Brothers Discovery's David Zaslav, and NBC Universal's Donna Langley attending. with top leaders in the room, top men. The studios made changes to their position on issues like minimum staffing in television writers' rooms and rewarding writers for the success of projects on streaming. Regulations on artificial intelligence proved to be a lasting sticking point, but the two sides came to a compromise by Sunday night. In its communication to members about the agreement on Sunday, the WGA called the resulting agreement exceptional. On Tuesday, the WGA West Board and the WGA East Council approved the deal, which set in motion the vote to end the restraining order against AMPTP member companies. The news brings to an end one half of a historic labor standoff in entertainment, a double strike not seen in over 60 years in Hollywood. SAG-AFTRA still remains out on strike, and neither that union nor the AMPTP have announced any new bargaining dates for the parties yet. On Tuesday evening, in a statement posted to Instagram, SAG-AFTRA's leadership sought to dispel speculation on meeting dates with the studios and streamers. Quote, at this time, we have no confirmed dates scheduled to meet with the AMPTP. When we do have dates confirmed, we will inform you. Unless you hear it from us, it's hearsay. SAG-AFTRA and AMPTP remain deadlocked on issues on general wage increases, a proposal to give union members a cut of platform subscriber revenue when their streaming projects succeed, and allegations or regulations on AI, among other issues. Even with the writers back at work, production cannot resume in any meaningful way without principal performers. Okay. So, I mean, they don't really give details on how the whole AI thing has shaken out, but what I've kind of heard secondhand is that not much has really changed, and the general feeling I get on this is that what the AMPTP is doing, at least, is kind of kicking this can down the road to an extent. Because, let's face it, time is on their side. They can afford to just kind of wait because the technology is only going to get better. And I think this is another 3-year deal. So in 3 years, how much better is the AI going to be? And eventually we're going to get to a point where the AI is going to be good enough that the studios are going to basically just say to the writers, you know what, we really don't need you that badly anymore. So here's our best deal, take it or leave it, something along those lines. Now, let's talk a little bit about the impact that this has had on Hollywood. And again, this is from the Hollywood Reporter. Film and TV business has lost 45,000 jobs since labor strikes began, U.S. labor report says. The sector lost 7,000 jobs in September after shedding 17,000 jobs in August. But will the industry bounce back when the strikes end? The Writers Guild of America strike is over, and there appears to be progress in negotiations between SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP, but the impact of the strikes on the entertainment business writ large is still being felt. U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released its September jobs report on Friday, and while it was a strong report for the country, it also showed the continued impact of the strikes. According to the BLS report, the film and TV sector lost another 7,000 jobs in September after reporting 17,000 job losses in August. Employment in the sector, quote, has declined by 45,000 since May, reflecting the impact of labor disputes. The WGA went on strike May 2nd, with SAG after joining them July 14th. In other words, with a good chunk of the entertainment industry grinding to a halt amid the writers and actors strikes, the industry shed nearly a whole Dodgers stadium worth of jobs. By contrast, the publishing sector added more than 6,000 jobs last month, while the telecommunications sector was flat. The good news is that with the WGA strike over, productions are slowly returning to work. And once the SAG after strike ends, there's an expectation that productions will resume quickly. The biggest question is if the tumult in the industry over the summer leads to any permanent job losses or if it will be limited as production resumes. Yeah, that is the question. And actually, I have another article here that I think will kind of speak to that. But give me just a second here. I need to take a drink of water. Okay. Now, where is that? Okay, here we go. And this article is from Bounding into Comics. Bounding into Comics by John F. Trent. So, Hollywood screenwriter explains how woke diversity hires will be out of jobs under new WGA deal. Okay. Screenwriter Script Doctor, he's a YouTuber, of course, recently asserted that woke diversity hires will be out of jobs under the newly minted deal that the Writers Guild of America signed with the studios. During an appearance on Midnight's Edge, specifically on Midnight's Edge in the Morning, Script Doctor shared his thoughts. He was asked by the show's host, will there be less jobs for writers now when you have guaranteed writers' rooms? And Script Doctor responded, well, this is one of the things I didn't like in regards to the guaranteed writers' room because you have compelled hiring. But it looks like certain members in the union on the negotiating committee have turned that inside out a little bit for the benefit of writers that know how to finish script and maybe not push too much ideology in there. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely some veteran writers out there that are drinking the Kool-Aid, but the vast majority of them, the ones that do preach this, are younger. I've been learning through my colleagues that a lot of them have actually spent more time striking and spending time on social media than actually expanding their portfolio of scripts to pitch when the strike is over. After briefly comparing himself to his colleagues, he continued. So basically, what we are seeing here from the youngins is there's going to be less, possibly less opportunities for them, especially in something like the pre-greenlit or mini rooms. And that comes down to two factors that I can think of right now. The first one is that the current NBA currently or clearly defines that a showrunner has to be a union writer, he said. So it can't be an internal executive producer like a Kevin Feige. It also gives them a bit more power in who they select for the writing positions in the minimum staffing rooms. And it also says that whoever they select has to be approved by the company or the showrunner has to argue for them to be involved. Now, with regards to those rooms, you have showrunners that would only a real showrunner, a good showrunner is only going to hire writers that they are going to get value out of in their room, which means that if you are diversity hire and that's all you've got going on, then you are of no value to a showrunner, which means you are not going to get your guaranteed hire over there. And I think that's a good thing, Script Doctor elaborated. As for his second point, he detailed the other aspect with regards to the contract pertaining to mini rooms is that the compelled hiring has now increased. The compelled hiring in the extended time frame for which they have to work on the show, which is like the minimum of 10 weeks. That essentially turns the mini room into something more expensive than the traditional model of developing a pilot, producing the pilot to be screened before an audience test to see whether or not it's actually going to be good, and then giving it the green light to go into an actual series order. The mini room basically tries to force a hit show within a 6 episode or 8 episode or 10 episode structure, get it all written before any of it is filmed, and then push it out there. I don't know. I kind of was under the impression they were doing that already anyway. It certainly feels like it. He then provided an example. You can take a look at a pilot like Ahsoka and say to yourself, okay, that's a show that was done in a mini room. It was done by one writer, Dave Filoni. And if you put that through the pilot test, there's no way it would have been picked up for the remainder of the episodes. And that's a good thing. You don't want that. Yeah, I won't disagree. So right now, it looks like mini rooms are kind of being, for the moment, they'll be kind of priced out on a budget side of things from the studios because it's more lucrative and less risky for them to actually go back to shooting a pilot, testing it, and then determining whether it's going to be given a series order, as opposed to building a show in a limited amount of time and then just pumping it out for you to be stuck with it and can't control, develop, or change it based on audience reception. Script doctor then asserted, and when you have those types of orders and you have the showrunner being in charge of it and picking the writers that they want to work with, and being able to argue why they need it for the benefit of the show, you then basically exclude any of the writers in town that are not going to be of value to you. And I think everybody listening and gentlemen on the panel know those types of writers are not going to be lasting in this industry because they're not qualified. And I think that's great. I think that's great that there's less jobs for them because that gives me that gives me a better chance for having more job opportunities. He then hey man, at least he's being honest here. I mean, he could have tried to pretend it was about something else. He then responded to a comment from Andre. I can never say it's Andre's the host of Midnight's Edge. I can never say his last name. Ein Harar. I'm sure I'm saying it's wrong, but let's face it. A big part of the problem that we've had, especially with the MCU of late, isn't just the producers behind the scenes have gone nuts. It is also the writers' rooms are staffed with incompetence and general assorted activists, many of whom would be these younglings, if you will, that come in not through merit, but through other means and produce a bunch of BS. Script Doctor replied, it's not through merit. They've done something that's made them hot in the moment. And then you basically have the studios clamoring at them to work for them for writing. They overbook themselves or overstretch themselves. And then they end up becoming terrible because they've signed 9 deals that are due over the next year and a half or 2 years to turn in. Trying to write 9 feature films in 2 years is a really difficult thing to do, especially if you're going to be maintaining quality. And on top of that, you're putting them out there, you're getting these notes back, you're going to back and forth, you're dividing a lot of your time. This is the big red flag I've pointed out, especially with Dave Callahan. He's written Wonder Woman 1984, Zombieland 2, Mortal Kombat, and Shang-Chi. Those 4 movies alone came out within a year of each other, and they were all terrible, but he was a hot ticket item writer for the studios. Switching to television, he commented, "Now, if you're going to have a little bit less, especially on the television side of things, where they're not going to be producing as many shows, that has a benefit because it's getting more into quality over quantity. And on top of that, maybe there's a chance that you guys out there in the audience will actually start seeing other shows that are not being pushed solely by Disney and also some of the other networks. That would be a good thing because there's probably a lot out there that you haven't seen yet that might actually be of your fancy. So it backfired against the woke, and that's great," he concluded. Script Doctor did go on to recognize that the New Deal will not eradicate all the woke writers from Hollywood, at least not immediately. Quote, a number of the members of the current WG board that were expecting this to lead to hiring of those types of hires are disappointed to learn about this. However, they're probably also prominent enough in the industry to get a show here and there. So they will be, of course, hiring that. So you will most likely have those types of shows peppered throughout still for a little bit. Here's the other part too, because of the new residual metric. The more money you get comes based on the fact that you have to obtain 20% of the subscriber viewership or more in order for you to make the most amount of money. So if you care about making money as a writer, that means you have to make a good show. Well, is it a good show or is it just a good enough show? And you will soon see that certain habits, such as the stuff that we can point to Disney doing, is not going to be very profitable. And it will be a difficult time for some of those writers that get those opportunities to learn that lesson. And it will be a difficult time for us as an audience being exposed to those shows and then, of course, turning them off and trying to find something else. And that's a good thing. It's basically like their desire to want more money based on those residuals has forced them to basically say, oh, we actually have to do a good job now. And I think that's great. So it looks to me that irony has prevailed in regards to the quality of the work, which is predicated on the merit of the show and how well that appeals to an audience and gains viewership. He then declared, once I think enough of the industry learns that everyone else will start benefiting from it, at least on the entertainment side of things. The idea that a number of writers will be out of jobs following the WGA deal was recently claimed by financial analyst Valiant Renegade on his YouTube channel, where he stated, quote, the union bosses of the WGA have declared victory against Hollywood studios. Meanwhile, a lot of the rank and file writers, the union members themselves, are probably going to be out of work and perhaps even looking for new careers. He explained. So, pretty much as we predicted, or as any economics textbook could have predicted of this, if there was going to be an artificial increase in labor costs, then there was going to be a necessary offset by way of production costs. Deadline's Nellie Andreeva also reported that a number of her anonymous sources informed her there would be less work for writers. She wrote accelerated contraction, more competition, reeled in budgets, fewer overall deals, and possibly more cancellations are some of the things industry sources are preparing for. One source informed her, no one is buying. This is the worst marketplace that I've ever experienced. An anonymous writer also informed her, quote, across the board, what I've heard from buyers is they will be buying less and making less. Another anonymous studio executive also stated the strike just sped up the inevitable pullback. I suspect everybody will be doing less. Oh, okay. So quite a bit covered in that article. And I can't say I'm really surprised by hearing any of that. I did wonder how the New Deal was going to affect Hollywood in general and affect particularly younger, more inexperienced writers. It's always a case of, last hired, the people who are the last ones hired are the first ones fired, right? So more inexperienced new writers are more likely to struggle getting work going forward. That doesn't surprise me. How much of this will play out the way some people like Valiant Renegade seem to predict, I don't know. Or Script Doctor for that matter. I mean, they are more knowledgeable than I am, so they would know. But I don't know. We've been hearing about the I don't know, the death of woke Hollywood or the impending death of woke Hollywood for a while, and it hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going anywhere. Will we see less? Yeah, I think we will, but it's not like this stuff's gonna just go away at any point. I think it's pretty much here to stay. Okay. Let me take another drink here. Just a moment. Okay. I don't know. I sneezed earlier and it's weird. It's like my throat kind of reacted to it. Now I've like got this wheezing in my throat I'm trying to prevent. All right. So let's move on and talk about James Gunn. So James Gunn has apparently revealed some of the actors that are going to be staying over in the DCU as it reboots and goes forward from the DCEU or Snyderverse or whatever you want to call it, as it reboots and goes forward from and this is from Cinema Blend.
Whatever you want to call it.
James Gunn confirms three DCEU stars who will keep their roles in the DC universe, but there's a catch.
Whatever you want to call it.
James Gunn confirms three. Earlier this year, DC Studios co-CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran announced a full slate of film and television projects that will launch the newly minted DC universe in the coming years. But one thing that has remained a big question mark is whether or not stars from the existing DC extended universe canon will be returning in their
But one
respective
thing that has
roles.
remained a big question mark
Today,
is
we have
whether or
learned
not
that at
stars on
least
the
three actors are
existing
set to be
DC
back as
animated
their
universe
established
canon
characters, but their
will be
existing
returning in their
continuity will
one thing
not
that
be
has remained a
maintained.
big question mark
Today,
is
we have
whether or
learned
not
that at
stars on
least
the
as he
actors are
has
set
been
to
known
be
to
back
do,
as their
James Gunn took
established
to his
characters, but
personal
their
Threads account this
existing
morning to
continuity
answer
will not be
questions from
maintained.
fans.
Today we have
And
learned
in
that
one
at
of his
least three
posts, he
actors are
confirmed
set
that
to be back as
Cholo
their
Madri,
established personal
oh,
Threads account this morning to answer
Maduena,
questions from
Viola
fans.
Davis, Davis,
And in
and
one of his
Francina
posts,
are
he
all part of the
confirmed that
plans for the DC
Cholo
universe.
Madri's personal Threads account this morning
Admittedly,
to
most of
answer
this isn't
questions
super
from
new
fans.
information.
And in one of his
And this
posts,
is
he
Gunn. I
confirmed
guess this
that
is the
Cholo
post he put
Madri's
up.
personal Threads
Admittedly, most of
account
this isn't
most of
super
this
new
isn't super
information.
new
Viola
information.
Davis,
And in one of his
and this
posts,
is Gunn. I
Viola
guess
Davis
this was
was the
confirmed to return
Cholo
as Amanda Waller when the news came out that she was getting her own TV show.
Viola Davis,
And James Gunn
and
went
this is
on record
Viola
earlier
Davis was
this
confirmed
summer
to return as Amanda
calling
Waller when the news came
Cholo
out that she was getting
Maraduena's
her own
Blue Beetle the
TV
first
show.
DCU
Viola
character. Okay,
Davis
so
and
no, this
James
isn't a
Gunn went
post.
on
This is
record
just part of the
earlier this
article.
summer calling
But here's where things get a
Cholo
bit complicated.
Maraduena's
In
Blue
another
Beetle the
post on
first
Threads,
DCU
James Gunn was
character.
asked,
Okay, so no, this
will
is
the
Gunn went
audience
on
viewers
record
need to
earlier this
watch
summer
anything prior to Creature
calling. But
Commandos to
here's where
understand
things get
what's
a bit
going on?
complicated. In another post on Threads, James Gunn was asked,
The
okay, so no, will the
filmmaker
audience
offered
viewers
a
need to watch
succinct
anything prior to
response.
Creature Commandos to understand
Okay,
what's
so
going
this is
on?
post.
In another
That's a pretty
post on
big
Threads,
deal. It
James
seems
Gunn
that in
was
the
asked, okay, will
DCU,
the audience
offered
viewers
a
need to watch anything
Jamie
prior?
Reyes,
So here's where
Jaime
things get a bit
Reyes, and
complicated.
Amanda
That's a
Waller and
pretty big
Christopher
deal. It
Smith
seems that in
will
the
look exactly like their
DCU,
counterparts from movies and TV shows like
Jamie
Suicide
Reyes,
Squad,
Jaime
The
Reyes, and
Suicide
Amanda
Squad,
Waller and
Peacemaker,
Christopher
and Blue
Smith
Beetle, but
will
they
look
will be
exactly
different
like their
versions of the
counterparts from movies and
characters.
TV shows like
We
Suicide
can
Squad,
expect that some
The
details will
Suicide
remain
Squad,
consistent
Peacemaker, and
between
Blue
the canons,
Beetle,
but
but they will
otherwise
be
the
different
slate is being
versions
cleaned.
of the characters.
If it makes it
We
easier
can
to
expect that
digest,
some
think about the
details
supporting
will remain
characters in the
consistent between the
James
canons, but
Bond
otherwise
franchise who
the
carry
slate is
over
being cleaned.
after a new 007
If
is
it makes it
announced.
easier
We
to
can expect
digest, think
this
about the supporting
presumably means
characters in
that
the
fans shouldn't expect a
James
direct
Bond
follow-up
franchise who
to
carry
the end
over
credits scene in
after a
Blue
new
Beetle,
007 is
and it
announced.
raises a lot of questions
Digest, think
about what
about
is
this
being planned
presumably
for
means that
Peacemaker
fans shouldn't
Season
expect a
2.
direct follow-up to
With
the
their
end
roles in the
credits
DC
scene after a
universe,
new
Cholo
007,
Maraduena,
and
Viola
it
Davis,
raises
and
a
John
lot of
Cena are
questions
presently
about
part
what
of a rep plan
presumably
called
means that
Peacemaker
fans shouldn't
Season
expect
2.
a direct
The other
follow-up
actors who are
with their
confirmed to be
roles
in
in
the
the DC
franchise are
universe,
limited
Cholo
to the announced
Maraduena,
cast of
Viola Davis,
Superman
and John Cena are
Legacy and the
presently part of
animated
a rep
series
plan
Creature
called Peacemaker
Commandos.
Season 2. The other actors who are in their roles
And
in the
they just go
franchise
through
are
the
limited
actors
to
on
the
those
announced
shows. I'm
cast
not
of
going to go through it
Superman
all.
Legacy and the animated series Creature
As described
Commandos.
by James Gunn,
The other
Creatures
actors
Commandos.
and
Creature
they
Commandos is
just go
coming
through
out
the
next year
actors on the
as an
shows. I'm not going to go through it all.
aperitif to the DC
As
universe.
described
Okay,
by
sure.
James Gunn,
And
Creatures
then Superman
Commandos,
Legacy,
Creature
which will
Commandos is
be
coming out
released
next
on
year as
July
an
11, 2025,
aperitif to
will
the
be the first
DC
big dive
universe,
for
described by
audiences into
James
the
Gunn,
recent
and then
franchise,
Superman Legacy, which will be
et cetera,
released
et
on
cetera. So,
July 11, 2025, will be the first
I
big
mean,
dive for audiences
like the
into the
article
recent
says,
and
these
then
aren't
Superman
really
Legacy, which
huge
will be released on
surprises.
July 11,
The thing
2025,
is, I
will be the
think,
first big dive for audiences
like the
into the
article
recent
says,
and then
if
Superman Legacy,
if
which
you
will
can
be
just
released on July
start
11,
over
the thing
and then
is,
keep
I
actors
think,
over, why not just hold
like
over,
the article says, these
you know,
aren't really huge
you know, Henry
surprises.
Cavill, you know, why not
Start
keep
over.
him?
The thing
And then
is,
keep
why
actors
not
over,
keep Gal
why not
Gadot,
just hold over
Article
Gadot
says these
or other
if you
actors, you
could
know, Henry
just,
Cavill? And
why not keep him?
again, I think
Why
part of
not
it is
keep Gal Gadot,
expense. You know, it was becoming so
Gadot,
expensive
or other
to
actors,
retain those actors. I think that's
and
part of why they were let go. I don't
again,
think
I
it's the
think
only
part of it is
reason, but I think that's
expense.
part of it.
It was becoming so
And
expensive to retain those actors. I think that's
you know,
part of
I
why they were
understand
let
that,
go.
but
Again,
it's
I think part of it
frustrating
is
when
expense. It
they
was
say, you
becoming
know,
so
it's a reboot,
expensive
it's a full reboot, and
to
then, oh,
retain
but we're
those
keeping
actors. I
these
think
people.
that's part of
I
why they were
understand
let
that,
go.
but it's frustrating
And
and I
they
don't
say,
know.
it's a
I'm not a
reboot,
big
it's a
fan
full
of
reboot, and then
Peacemaker
oh, but we're
personally.
keeping
I know
these
some
people.
people like it.
Okay, sure.
I do like Viola
And
Davis
they say,
as
I'm
Waller,
not a big fan of Peacemaker
and I
personally.
can
I
see
know
her
some
staying
people like
on.
it.
And
I do like
Duena
Viola
and
Davis
he's fine as Blue
as
Beetle.
Waller.
He's
I'm not a
fine as
big fan of
Jaime. I like him,
Peacemaker
and
personally. I know
I
some
can see
people like
keeping
it.
him on, but keeping Cena's
I do
Peacemaker kind of
him. He's
seems
fine as can be.
it just seems kind of like a
Him,
cheat.
and
I don't know
I
why,
can
but
see keeping him
I'm
on,
not
but
that thrilled with
keeping
it. It's
Cena,
probably
I
just
think,
because
kind
I
of
don't like the
seems
kind of goofy
it just seems kind of like
interpretation
a
of the
cheat, and
character
I don't know why,
that
but I can see
Gunn
him on.
has.
It's probably just because
Yeah.
I don't like the kind of
But
goofy
I know people like
interpretation
it,
of the
so I'm sure
character
some will be glad to keep it
that
around.
Gunn has. It's probably just
Okay,
because
let's
I don't like the kind of
move on
goofy
here. I know people like
interpretation
it,
of the
so I'm sure
character.
some will be glad to keep it around. Okay, what do we got next? Okay, so we got another James Gunn related story here, and man, let me take another drink of water again. Hmm, okay. All right. So this is from coveredgeekly.com. And I think, as the saying goes, I should warn this is like strictly a rumor. So I don't know if this is something that's really going to happen or not, but it would kind of fit because, well, let me just read the article first. So James Gunn eyeing Marvel star for Jor-El in Superman Legacy. So James Gunn's Superman Legacy is set to breathe a new life in the DCEU in 2025. Although the main characters are confirmed, the rest of the characters, including the villains, are still shrouded in secrecy. Now, new rumors hint at the potential appearance of Jor-El and Brainiac in the film. Speculation is that James Gunn may be considering casting a well-known Marvel actor for the role of Superman's father. This fresh rumor comes from a verified user on the popular DCEU Leaks Reddit page. This user, who appears to have received verification from the moderators, claims to have viewed concept art for Superman Legacy. The concept art reportedly features a gray robot with green highlights that bears a resemblance to Brainiac's iconic headpiece. He's dra- he's drawn as being tall, and I mean really tall, like above 7 feet at least. His costume is sort of a mix between armor and fabric, with the armor bits being like a baby blue and the fabric being a crystally white. He has a blue House of L crest on his chest, which glows kind of like an LED. Interesting. Additionally, the leak suggests that Jor-El will be portrayed by Kurt Russell, known for his role in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Quote, and here's the fun part, take this with a grain of salt. A ton of concept art uses random actors' faces on characters, but the specific art I've seen features Kurt Russell's face on Jor-El. I mean, I don't know that that means anything. Since James Gunn is very deliberate with his concept art, and he has previously hinted that Guardians of the Galaxy actors might show up in the DC universe, there's a chance we could see Kurt Russell as Jor-El and possibly encounter Brainiac in some form. However, due to the ongoing SAG-AFTRA strike, Superman fans may have to wait a while to find out for sure. The script for Superman Legacy has already been completed by James Gunn. Since the writer strike is over, he will soon return to refine and finalize the script. However, there are still clouds of uncertainty over the production timeline due to the ongoing writer's strike. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that really means anything. And honestly, I mean, I'm a Kurt Russell fan, but I don't really see Kurt Russell as Jor-El. I could certainly see him playing the role of like some retired superhero, like maybe a Justice Society member that's, really gotten up in age and he's retired or something like that. Like, God, Um, I don't know, Starman maybe? I'm not sure. Maybe, maybe Vigilante, maybe the Golden Age Vigilante, maybe that would work. But I don't really see him as Jor-El. I don't know, he just doesn't feel like a Jor-El to me, but I'm sure if he does it, people will like it. That'll be cool. Okay, what else we got here? Okay, so I've got a story here about, the Daredevil Born Again series. Apparently, some details have come to light about that story, and again, this is from Bounding Into Comics. New Daredevil Born Again details revealed in uncovered copyright registration, including a female Uruk, race replaced Kirsten McDuffie, and John Bernthal's return as Punisher. Well, where'd it go? There it is. Come on. All right. New details have been revealed for Marvel Studios' upcoming Disney Plus series Daredevil Born Again that reveal the show will include a female Urich, a race replaced Kirsten McDuffie, and the return of John Bernthal as Punisher. On the U.S. Copyright Office's public records system, a filing for Daredevil Born Again on September 25th, 2023 provides a brief description of the show's first episode, as well as the cast members and who they will be playing. The filing was uncovered and brought to the attention of the public at large by ex user Scarlet Witch updates. As you can see in the description of the above the official description, it states Marvel Studios presents Marvel Studios presents Daredevil, in which longtime rivals Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox, and Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio try to leave behind their darker alter egos to serve the people of New York, only to have their pasts catch up to them. In the first episode of the series, we are reintroduced to the world of Daredevil. Following this brief description, it reveals the first episode is directed by Michael Cuesta and includes the following cast members and characters that they will play. Of note, it reveals that John Bernthal returns as Frank Castle. Other actors and their respective characters include Margarita Lieva as Heather Glenn, Michael Gandolfini as Daniel Blade, whoever that is, Sandrine Holt as Vanessa Fisk, Nikki M. James as Kirsten McDuffie, Janaya Walton as BB Urich, Clark Johnson as Cherry, Artie Froshan as Buck Cashman, and Sabrina Guevara as Sheila Rivera. Okay, so again, pretty much the only actors who are staying are Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio. Pretty much everyone else in the original that Netflix Daredevil show are gone. They're not coming back. And I've said before, and this is going to be, this is going to be Disney Marvel, and it's going to be goofy. They're going to probably play up the humor and play down Daredevil's effectiveness. He'll probably, before the show's over, he'll probably be a sidekick. Uh, I mentioned, I think somewhere along the way, I'd seen that they were going to bring Dakota North into the show, and I wouldn't be surprised if they, much like with their other streaming shows, they use this as a platform to spin a female character, Dakota North, in this place into her own show. So don't be surprised if she basically becomes Daredevil's partner and he becomes her sidekick for all practical purposes. It wouldn't surprise me. Okay. Now, and also, yeah, let's talk about some of the names right quick. So some of these I don't know. Now, Margarita Levieva, I don't know. Michael Gandolfini, I assume that's James Gandolfini's son, probably. In fact, I believe he was in that prequel show for what is it? The Sopranos. I forget the name of it, but he was in that playing his father's character, I think. Sandrine Holt. Now that name is familiar to me. I know that from somewhere. I'm thinking, let me look her up. Yeah, yeah. So Sandrine Holt. So she was on The Expanse. Who did she play? I believe she played one of the Belters. I forget her character's name now, but yeah, I knew that name was familiar. And then Janiyah Walton as BB Urich. So they're taking the character of Ben Urich, who in the comics originally he was a man, a white man. Now they made him black in the Netflix show. And now apparently in here that's not enough, so now they're going to gender flip him and make him a woman too. Clark Johnson, if that's the Clark Johnson I'm thinking of, he was on Homicide for many years, and I mean he's a pretty decent actor. Don't know the other names. Yeah, I don't have much enthusiasm for this series. I'm not expecting it to be very good. I'm expecting it to be, like I say, kind of silly, kind of goofy. But I guess we will just have to wait and see how that plays out. All right. So what have I got? I got 20 minutes left. I'm going to go to 8:30. All right. So next story. This is a story about related to Magic the Gathering, and this is from website .esports.com. And this says Wizards of the Coast could retire certain Magic the Gathering creature types for religious reasons. Hey, okay, so Magic the Gathering publisher Wizards of the Coast may be moving away from printing cards with certain creature types in the future following comments from Magic the Gathering's lead designer, with a number of types set to be canned due to their connections with real life religious references. Magic the Gathering lead designer Mark Rosewater indicated that shamans and druids are among the creature types that may disappear in blog posts responding to commenters late last week. The discussion was sparked when a user asked why witch wasn't a creature type, with Rosewater replying that as it's a quote real world religious identifier unquote, it was avoided. Another asked that if witch was excluded, how did shaman and druid, also references to somewhat similar real life religious beings, manage to make the cut? Rosewater simply replied, "We are currently examining that exact topic." Rosewater went on to say that while druid was far less of an issue than shaman, the whole concept revolved around players using the vocabulary as game terms incorrectly in a way where it takes meaning beyond just identifying a particular card, unquote. The possible axing of these creature types following Rosewater revealing in June, the Magic the Gathering design team uses typal instead of the historic tribal term. Wow. Okay. Sure. Why not? And here's the quote. So, multiple consultants recommended we stop using the language, so we decided to change it. We picked a word that was similar so we can swap it in the same places we were using tribal. Good Lord. Druids have been a long-standing creature type in Magic the Gathering dating back almost to the game's inception, with almost 300 Magic the Gathering cards printed over the years featuring the term. Druids also feature heavily in a variety of other gaming media, from Dungeons and Dragons to Baldur's Gate 3, as well as a class option in many fantasy RPGs, both online and in person. Shaman has appeared nearly twice as often as Druid, and while Witch isn't a creature type, over 70 cards have been printed that mention witches in some shape or form. It appears like the case of June's decision to scrap the term tribal internally. Consultants may have deemed the terms culturally sensitive. We'll see come Magic the Gathering's next standard set, The Lost Caverns of Ixalan, releasing in November, whether Wizards of the Coast opts to phase out these types. Oh, good Lord. Um, I haven't played Magic in a long time, so I don't have a strong feeling about this one way or the other. But really, you don't even use the word tribal. You take out that and use tribal. Wow. Wow. Just the mind control, the subtle control of speech and censoring of speech. It's basically just censorship by, by just one droplet at a time, like how a dripping water wears down a stone. Just a word here, a word there. What's the big deal? It's just a word, bro. It's just ridiculous. Okay. Um, And let me take another drink of water again. I don't know why my throat is this way. Hold on a moment. Okay. All right. Now, here's another story. And again, this is from Bounding into Comics. And this is kind of sad. So, comic shop behind free comic book day signals it might be shutting down soon. The comic shop behind free comic book day appeared to signal it will be shutting its doors in the near future. Flying Colors Comics, which is operated by Joe Field, the creator of Free Comic Book Day, appears to announce it will be shutting down following its 35th anniversary event this upcoming weekend. In a Facebook post, the comic shop, which is located in Concord, California, invited customers to stop by the store for its upcoming 35th anniversary event on October 7th, where they will be serving Hulk Smash brownies, giving away a commemorative exclusive art print, and hosting John Bonifert for a signing. Don't really know who that is. Following this, the post states, quote, honestly, and maybe a bit sadly, there aren't likely any more milestone anniversaries for this shop in this location. So this photo of the shop at night is maybe a little reflective of the state of things as they are currently, unquote. However, Field did not go into any other details, cutting the topic off, writing, enough of that for now, though. So where is that? Yeah. Enough of that for now, though. Please come help us celebrate these last 35 years of bringing the best in comics and other cool stuff to Contra Costa County. Help us celebrate this humble spot on the worldwide pop culture map. Let's have some fun. If indeed Flying Colors Comics is announcing its closing as the post seems to imply, it's the second biggest store to close down in as many months. JHU Comic Books announced they were closing down at the end of August, posting to Facebook, quote, after 10 years of operation in Manhattan and decades before that as Jim Hanley's universe, JHU Comic Books will be closing the Manhattan location at the end of September. Yeah, I'm actually working on a video where I'm going to talk about this for my channel. So hope you will keep your eyes peeled for that. The store explained the decision. Rising cost affords JHU to make this choice, and they have decided that the best way to continue to serve NYC comic fans is to focus on the operations of the flagship location on Staten Island. Towards the end of September, the shop affirmed their decision to shut down, posting, quote, this Wednesday will be the last day of our Manhattan location at 41 Third Avenue. A few things to say. First off, from Sunday to Wednesday, all back issues and all pre-2023 publication date trade paperbacks and hardcovers will be half price. Come and get some stuff so we don't have to carry it back. They continued. Second, we will happily accept anyone who wants to volunteer. Please reach out to us. Let us know. We should be here both days and really use some hands on deck and would love to see familiar faces. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm working on a video on this for my channel talking about how just comic shops are continuing to close and the comic industry isn't getting any better. It's really in awful shape and it's only getting worse. And it's getting bad enough that comic pros, particularly ones who in recent years were largely naysaying that there was a problem and dismissing that possibility, are finally starting to take note and admit that, hey, there's a problem. Okay. I got 10 more minutes, so I don't know what I'll do. I'll do probably one more here, and then that'll wrap it up. And again, this is from Bounding into Comics. Wa- Watchman scribe Alan Moore says the comic books medium is perfect, but the comics industry is a dysfunctional hellhole. I mean, I can't disagree. I can't say he's wrong. Once again, making clear his disdain for the modern comic book landscape, storied Watchmen and Swamp Thing author Alan Moore recently admitted that while he finds the medium to be perfect and sublime, the industry itself is a dysfunctional hellhole. The noted writer offered his latest criticism of the Western comic book industry while speaking to Games Radar's Will Salmon in promotion of the short story reprinting of his short story collection Illuminations. Referring to one of the short stories contained with the collection, a harsh satire of the superhero genre titled What Can We Know About Thunderman? Salmon asked Moore, particularly in light of his highly negative attitudes towards the current comic book industry, quote, why return to the subject of comics now? Is this an exorcism? In turn, the writer confidently confirmed, that's exactly the word. No, that's exactly the word. I don't know. I can't do Alan Moore. I'd like to do him impersonation, but I don't really do him. I've disowned most of my comics work, including stuff like Watchmen, V for Vendetta, all of the ABC stuff, everything that I don't own, said Moore. The only active thing I could do was disown it, which was painful. I put an enormous amount of work and energy and a great deal of love into all those projects, and it felt like a bit of an amputation to disown them. At the same time, that was the only way to cut out the poison, he further explained. I don't have a copy of any of those works. I'll never be looking at them again, and even thinking about them, all I've got is memories of having my intellectual property rights stolen, and then when I complained about that, being typified as a crazy, angry guy. Alan Moore says, "Get off my lawn." And yes, all right, I was quite cross, but I don't think without reason. And also to suggest that I'm angry about everything is an evasion. It's a means of going, oh well, if he's angry about everything, then we don't have to worry about what he says, about the way that people are treated in the comics industry. He's just angry about everything. I got to say, I can't disagree with what he's saying here. I mean, he's not wrong, and he certainly did have reason to be PO'd at DC and at the comics industry for a number of reasons. And once these things have been taken away from my hands and made into franchises, then they can be given to anybody to do what they want with, and that will somehow still be associated with me, Moore added. Summarizing his feelings on the subject, the Tom Strong creator then declared, the comics medium is perfect. It is sublime. The comics industry is a dysfunctional hellhole. So why did I want to return it to it in this story? He then asserted, returning to Salmon's original question. Like you say, it's an exorcism. As one of the characters finds in Thunderman, it's one thing to quit comics, but quitting comics is a different thing to being able to stop thinking about them. Writing this got an awful lot out of my system. It said a lot of the things that I've always wanted to say, but I'd never really had the right context to say them in. But doing them in a Kafkaesque satire that worked perfectly, more than reflected. And when I say Kafkaesque satire, what I mean is that Franz Kafka, while he was reading his stories to his followers and appalled friends, he would be laughing almost too hard to get the lines out. It's horrible, hideous, appalling, but the author was probably giggling when he wrote it. Pressed by Salmon, if despite everything you still have a love for the medium, Moore affirmed, absolutely. I hope that my love of it comes across in What Can We Know About Thunderman? My love of Jack Kirby and many of the other artists and a couple of the writers of his generation, he told Salmon. The descriptions of a 6-year-old kid glimpsing a comic book rack could not have been written without being able to tap into my memories of what it was like a first exposure to comics. Medium can do anything. Its potential is still almost completely untapped. So it was attempting to express my love of the medium, some of the wonderful people who worked in it, and also express my horror at the fact that this little offshoot, the superhero genre, has become a monoculture that's in danger of taking down at least a considerable part of the comics medium with it when superhero movies finally aren't interesting. Bringing his thoughts on the topic to a close, more ultimately opined, when that happens, my worry is that a lot of the comic shops won't be able to continue, and a lot of interesting independent comics would otherwise perhaps not have outlets. Well, I mean, I think he's right in that sales are declining, and like I said, covering the previous article, they're only going to get worse, and there are probably going to be a lot of comic shops closing and a lot of comic pros losing work. But I don't know. I think at this point it may be unavoidable. All right. So I'm at 55 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there. I want to thank everyone who stopped by to listen during the stream and also those who listen on a rewatch. And while you're here, please do sub to my channel and check out some of my videos. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. I hope you all have a good evening. And oh, and also, I will be with my National Guard unit next weekend. So I will not be streaming next weekend. It'll be in 2 weeks, but I will be back and I hope to see you then. Everyone, have a good night.